The Blast from Our Past Network.
Lock your doors, close your windows, turn out your lights, for chills and thrills await you. It's time for Podcasting After Dark with your hosts, Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer. Stay with a friend, say your prayers as grisly ghouls close in to seal your doom, and enjoy this bonus episode of Podcasting After Dark.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a special mini review episode. So far, I've been doing these all solo, but I have my friend Luna Snow here with me, and we are going to be discussing Clerks from 1994. And you all are probably like, oh, that movie's hella old. Why are we talking about that? Well, because Luna is anything but hella old, unlike me. And she watched it for the first time, and I want to get her take on it. But let me introduce Luna. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing good, doing fine. Luna and her husband are here staying with us in town while they're en route to California, right? See some friends?
That's right. We're headed down to Merced after this.
Nice. So we hung out today, and we hung out last night, and we're going to hang out tonight, and then they're going to hit the road again, unfortunately. We love having them here. But Luna did watch Clerks before she came down, per, I guess, my recommendation, I guess.
Per your recommendation, and I saved it till about 2 or 3 days ago, so it's fresh in my memory.
Okay. So what I was curious about, so guys and gals, you all know, I was born in 78. You know, I very much grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and Clerks was such a huge part of my late teen years, early 20 years, but it's also because I worked at a mom and pop video store, Luna works in retail as well. You're a little bit younger than me, though. Can we
just
say...
a little bit. I was born in 92, so when this movie came out, it was maybe a little bit before my time. But I think it's still relevant to today, especially for those of us who unfortunately have to serve the public in retail.
Exactly. So let's get into it. So you know where we're both coming from. Luna's a little bit younger, and she's never seen Clerks before. I'm older and loved it growing up as a kid. It was always my work movie, more so than Office Space, because I never really worked in an office. So just right off the top, what did you think of Clerks?
I thought it was great. I thought it was hilarious. I think a lot of the jokes about retail, especially when it comes to dealing with the public, the customer facing, is still very relevant to today. I mean, I think I almost want to say retail's gotten worse because customers have become so accustomed to instant gratification. So I think even though the movie's 31 years old, I think it's still super relevant for those of us who struggle in the retail environment.
Yeah, the struggle in the retail environment. So next question, who did you relate to more? Dante or Randal?
Definitely Dante.
You're the Dante?
I'm a retail store manager, so I do have some sort of air of responsibility.
Whereas Randal has
business,
none.
And Randal doesn't care at all. So definitely more of a Dante kind of character.
Okay. And I gave you no prep going in, other than the fact that I told you when you watch it, just know that I was Randal growing up.
I wish it could be Randal. I wish literally spitting in the customer's face. I mean, we've all been there. We've all had customers that are challenging and you just, or like Dante throws the keys away when the guy, leaves them on the counter.
Yeah.
We all have those darker inklings that we,
Yeah. And here's the thing. I will say, it's funny how you bring up the spitting in the face. That was the one line that I think Randal kind of went, sort of too far with.
Sure.
I understand in the movie it was like, Kevin Smith was trying to make a point with it. I think that's even where he talks about the ruling class. Like, I'm in favor of, the ruling class because I rule, type of thing. Yes. But as a kid, I always thought that was a little bit too far, the spitting in the face. Like, I never did.
Well, it was very
that.
direct. I mean,
right.
It's some of the other things can be forgiven. But that, I think today would probably be considered assault. So
yeah. And honestly, like, if someone spit in my face, they would get punched in the nose.
Oh, absolutely.
It's
without question.
Yeah, but aside from that, I thought it was, well, I guess what came first, the chicken or the egg? Was I Randal-esque and then saw the movie, or did I see Clerks and then became Randall-esque, post. I don't know. It doesn't matter. So you definitely are a bit more Dante-esque. What did you think about the plight of not being able to open the store, and I assure you we are open and all that kind of stuff. When the the gum got put in the
lock, so you couldn't open the shutters. I think if
would you have just gone home that day?
No.
You are Dante.
I would want to, but that's the thing. As a store manager,
Randall would have.
You have to, kind of maintain that responsibility.
You are Dante.
I am Dante in all aspects.
I love it. Did you have a partner bring you lasagna at work at all when you were working? Does Adrian bring you lasagna at work?
Adrian actually used to work in the same shopping plaza.
Oh.
So it was more like me going to visit him. We would never take lunch breaks together because our hours were so different.
Yeah.
But I would go kind of harass him over at his job at the grocery store.
Oh, that's nice. Now, another part of Clerks that we all love is the zany collection of side characters that come through the movie. Obviously, Jay and Silent Bob. What were your thoughts on them? Because at this point, have you ever seen a Kevin Smith film before?
No, it's my first one.
Okay,
yes.
so this is but pop culture wise, had you heard of like Jay and Silent Bob and Kevin Smith and everything?
Never. No.
Okay.
This was totally new.
Totally new
territory.
Okay, so. Silent Bob is the director, writer, Kevin Smith, and then Jay is his buddy Jason Mewes, who they just basically grew up together, and he puts him in all of his movies and everything. But what did you think about Jay and Silent Bob? Did you like them? What'd you think?
Well, this was the Russian guy, right? Who was
No, they were the drug dealers outside.
Okay,
the one with the trench coat,
yes,
and then yeah,
they were really interesting. I mean, they kind of they hang around for the whole day because the premise of the movie is that it's like a whole work day.
Yeah.
Right. So Dante gets called into work on his day off because someone else is sick, and you have the drug dealers kind of in and out of the store. I think at one point he goes in and steals some food while Dante's preoccupied with another customer.
Yeah.
So they were really funny. I think they added some good comic relief.
Okay.
To the movie.
And you liked the Russian guy, didn't you?
Yeah, Berserker.
Yeah, Berserker. Yeah. Fucking love Berserker. That's always been one of my favorite side characters in the movie. And then frickin' it's the one where she goes out, hey, try to suck any cocks on the way to your car, and then one guy starts walking, get back here. But working in retail, do you have a collection of oddities that hang around your store at all?
A collection of oddities, I would say no. There's definitely a group of people who maybe they are oddities. There's definitely the type of people who come into the store on the regular, maybe not every day, but you see them around. I've got this really interesting customer, and I will preface this: he is the sweetest guy, but he's a little bit quirky. I can't remember his name, but he's always decked out in the clothes from our store every day. Even if you see him walking, he's always wearing our coats, our hats, and he'll come in and talk about how kangaroos are taking over the earth and they're secretly from outer space.
Interesting.
So he's a really big character when he comes in. Some of my employees really like to avoid him because he kind of weirds them out, but he's totally harmless.
Yeah.
But he definitely kind of is a little bit of comic relief for our workday because he'll come in and just talk about the most batshit crazy things that you've ever heard of. He's definitely a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
But he's just doing his rounds, walking around the shopping plaza. I think I've heard from other stores that he does the same thing with them, that he'll go in and spend 15 minutes talking to the clerks just about some random thing that he saw on the internet. Yeah, so we definitely have some characters that come in. I've got another guy who comes in and he just walks the store every morning and he'll look at two things and just leave. Hardly says a word to anybody. So there's a collection of people, that
are harmless
to.
and
They're harmless. Yeah.
Like in the movie with the people checking the milk expiration dates,
gosh, that was
or the egg guy or whatever,
Well, the funny thing is that I work in like apparel retail,
right.
So we have people who do that with the stitching on the clothes. They'll turn their shirts or the sweaters inside out, and they'll check every stitch and every seam.
Oh, so you have your own very specific kind of people that come in that are quirky and different.
Yes, thankfully they're not smashing eggs against the fridge door.
Yes,
but
yeah.
But we do have people who just have those habits about them. Maybe it's a little bit of an OCD thing. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, my biggest when I worked at the video store, and it was just to tell you, but a lot of the listeners know, it's one of those video stores where the front of the store is all regular movies, regular VHSs, and they're all covered with dust because not a single person rented any of them because it was all in the back of the store. It was all the adult stuff. That's what everybody wanted. And my sort of biggest thing was I'd get somebody right when the store opened, they'd come in, rent a movie, and then they'd be back an hour later and rent another one. And it just got to the point where I'm like, I don't like knowing the window that you jerked off in this hour. You know what I mean? And
60 minutes in and out.
And the worst is when, because I was also VHS back in the day, when they would not rewind the tape. So then I'd be like, oh, well, I know exactly where you
they finished.
where you finished, and then the third level of worseness is when I would reach in the bag to grab the tape and the fucking thing would almost slip out of my hands because of the KY jelly or something. And then or whatever whatever they use, the Vaseline or whatever they used, and I literally would just just have to clean the tape, clean the case, and then just walk back into the,
You should be getting hazard pay for that.
You would think. So, but so back to the movie. It was black and white because it was, it was like a hyper low budget film. Like Kevin Smith financed, all of that himself and everything. And I think, from that, you get kind of obviously you don't get a lot of movement in shots and stuff like that because you kind of have to keep the camera stationary. But were you into the look of it, or would you have preferred it to be in color, or did the black and white not bother you?
No, it didn't bother me at all. I honestly, when I think about it, I don't think I even really noticed it was in black and white. It didn't stand out to me oh, this isn't in color, this is weird. Even though it's from the 90s when color was definitely already ubiquitous. I kind of liked it. And like you mentioned, they didn't really move the camera around a lot, but they didn't need to.
No.
I mean, it's kind of like their story behind the counter, and maybe they move around a little bit, but I don't think they needed a lot of action shots because it's really about the story building.
And in the dialogue.
Yes.
Obviously Kevin Smith, huge Star Wars fan, and I mean, and all of this is pre Family Guy making fun, doing Star Wars episodes and stuff. So at the time, the whole conversation that Randall and Dante have about, the Death Star and everything that, I feel like you watch it now and I think everyone's heard it a million times now, but this is sort of where that kind of started. It was Tarantino and Kevin Smith in the 90s started this idea of dialogue was literally just the same shit you and I would be saying to each other, and started this whole natural dialogue thing. But watching it now for the first time, did it feel familiar at all? Because at the time it felt new and fresh, but
I think it felt familiar because we kind of see those things, like you said, with Family Guy, American Dad. They make those jokes that we can all connect with. And even though this is from the 90s, I mean, I've seen all the things that they're talking about. So it definitely... Maybe there's an air of nostalgia for me because we're talking about the Death Star and Return of the Jedi and Revenge of the Sith. And I mean, it's really interesting conversation, but when you work in retail, those are the kinds of conversations you're having with your coworkers. I mean you're with the same person for 8 hours a day, these things are going to come up. So. Including the personal drama that they deal with their girlfriends. And
Yep. you know every aspect.
Yes, maybe too much.
Always too much. But yeah, no, I agree. Me and my buddies would have the same bullshit conversations when we were working together. But I will say, I think working, at the store, one of the hardest things, part of the job always was fucking figuring out where to eat, where we were gonna order food from or something like that. It would take hours for us to get a hone in on something, or figuring out what the hell to watch, sure. on the TV. But what do you do to kill time when nothing's happening at the store?
So my guilty pleasure is actually reading reviews for restaurants in the area. There's a few restaurants that are notorious for having really poor service, and I love to just read all of the shit that people say about them on Google. So I'll just pull it up every day. I have my 4 or 5 restaurants that I Google. Let's see what people are saying today about the salad restaurant next door.
Nice. That's all. Yeah. What did they have next to them? They had the video store and the Quick Mart, the Quick Stop, and I don't remember if there was anything further down or not. But it's funny too because the video store that I worked at was very much like that. It was just a strip mall.
Sure.
And there's Asian massage parlor a few stores down.
Okay. What were we talking a proper happy ending parlor?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, you have the videos too, so maybe they just pop it in at the parlor. And,
No. It was a proper. Yeah. One time I was outside smoking a cigarette and I saw cops, they raided the place.
Oh,
Like
Jesus.
everyone just went past, and I saw a reporter with the local news, was there and
Did you
everything
step
like
out with
that.
your cigarette?
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, this is it's much more interesting what's happening inside my place. But yeah, so all right, back to Clerks. Who was Dante? You're a Dante person, so who was your favorite What was your favorite side bit thing that happened?
I think it had to be not Dante's girlfriend, but his ex-girlfriend. I forget her name. Was it Caitlin?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that she comes in and they're going to get back together and she ends up fucking the corpse in the bathroom. And Dante's just aghast. He's like, that was not me back there. Who was back there? And they end up wheeling the guy out. Still full on erection as he gets escorted out by the coroner. I just thought she was hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think she had cheated on him a bunch, and he still wants to get back with her, and then she ends up fucking the corpse, and it's just at that point she's just aghast. She's sitting in the back of the ambulance, just
her mind
distraught.
is broken.
I think they said she's gonna need years of therapy after that just to recover.
No, that was a good one. I like that.
What about you? What was your favorite?
Oh crap! I always liked when Randall was reading off the names of all the terrible in front of the lady. Yeah, that was always
she was with her kid too, because he wanted puppy protector. I don't know, their version of Paw Patrol for the 90s, I guess.
Yep. No, anything Randall, I loved. I always try to do the walk when he walks in. And, does that little walk thing, but I could never quite do it. So many just quotes from the movie are at this point I just say them. I don't even know that they're I don't even register that they're quotes from that movie. It's just a part of my DNA at this point. And as much as I loved Clerks, his follow-up film Mallrats is actually my favorite Kevin Smith film. So I do want you to watch that one.
I'll put it on the list.
At some point. I think that one's a fun one as well. And that one's more so if you've ever worked at a mall, then I think you'll get a lot out of it. But I'm happy to hear that Clerks holds up. Did you find were some of the jokes not quite obviously modern? Did you ever have any? I think
if you're looking for a PC movie, this isn't it. Not at all. I mean, there's a lot of it's a very sexually explicit film.
Yes.
I wasn't holding it to that standard when I watched it though.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can. I mean, if you're going to be easily offended, don't watch the movie. But I think it was 1994. Yeah, I mean, that was pretty commonplace back then. So I didn't have any problem with it.
What'd you think of the fashion? All right, and do you want that fashion to come back?
Maybe not, but maybe it actually is. I feel like a lot of the folks that I'm around are starting to get back into that early 90s kind of oversized leather jackets and the metal rimmed glasses that are really thin.
Yeah.
It almost reminds you of The Matrix kind of a little bit. I feel like it's coming back, and fashion comes in waves. I'm not a fashionista myself, so I don't hold myself to any trend, but I don't mind it. I mean, I think there's been worse things.
So would you wear one of those big Jinko jeans with the giant legs and everything? Oh, I remember the chain belt and whatnot. To your wallet.
It's not
and
my
stuff.
personal touch.
Yeah, not my style either. One thing I did like from that 90s era was where you had a hoodie with the hood and then the jacket sort of over the hoodie. Yep. I've always liked that look.
It's a good look.
Yeah, I always thought that's pretty cool looking. And I did have my...
And you don't have to use the hood either. It's just
right, it's just there for looks.
Yeah,
for aesthetics. And I had my... Because again, I was in high school at this point, so... I had my oversized leather jacket, like the one that, Brad Pitt had in Seven, that sort of half... Not quite a trench coat, but sort of that half.
It's getting there.
Yep. I loved that as a kid. But nowadays I probably go with the modern 80s style, which is kind of it's like modern cuts, but the colors are very vibrant, and everything. That's sort of my style that my wife has dressed me in. If it was up to me, I would just be wearing t-shirts and
you do dress
jeans.
Very colorfully though.
It's all her now. It's all because of her. I used to wear nothing but black clothes. Cool. I'm really glad that you enjoyed Clerks. I was, I wasn't sure how well
I think it was a great recommendation, and I appreciate it because I can relate to the retail environment.
I figured at least you could relate to all that kind of stuff.
I think anybody who works in retail can appreciate a film like this.
Okay.
I mean, because we've all been there. We all have the coworker who's complaining about their relationship problems, and you're coaching them through it. And then you have the characters that are coming in and out of the store. You have the customers that are holding you accountable for things that aren't your responsibility. I think one thing that really stood out to me was the guy who led the little mini insurrection against like purchasing cigarettes.
Yeah.
And I get that with customers too that are like trying to give me a lesson on why everything's made in China. And I'm like, dude, I'm just here to make a paycheck. I didn't decide where this is made.
Yeah.
Like, if you want it, buy it. If you don't, you can leave. So it's a good therapy if you work in retail to kind of watch a film like this, just to see how ridiculous some of the day-to-day stuff you go through really is. Don't take it too seriously. If you work in retail, don't take it too seriously. Some people do. I know some managers that just everything is so serious. Yeah. Everything is about the business metrics. And at the end of the day, they're going to replace you when you quit.
Yeah,
you know?
and it won't mean
anything.
Like anything. Anything you didn't like in the movie that you want to call out? Like, I don't know how specific you want to get, but was there any parts you weren't digging on?
I mean, I thought it was really well done. It almost reminded me of like a Ferris Bueller's Day Off in a way.
Yeah.
Like the way that it's just following the clerks from the moment that they wake up in the morning at 6 a.m. all through their shift at work. Obviously, Ferris Bueller was the opposite. I mean, he's skipping school. But I think the way that it just follows like a specific time period, right. I really enjoyed that.
It's almost like a cross section of just this moment of their lives, and like that's it. You know?
And that's all it needed to do.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that. There was nothing in the film that I really like. I was like, oh, I hate this, or like shouldn't be there. I think it was really tastefully done.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And well, I mean, you've been on a tear lately. You watched Blade Runner. You watched I think something else that was a bit older that you watched as well.
Tron.
Yes, Tron. Yep. You watched Tron recently. So yeah, you've been
on. For your listeners who don't know, I was recovering from surgery in December. So Corey gave me a very long list of movies to watch, and even hooked me up with a bunch of DVDs to keep me occupied. So I've been immersing myself in 70s, 80s, 90s pop culture films, and it's been really fun. I think like being born in 92, by the time that you're old enough for those to maybe hit home a little bit. I mean, we were in the early 2000s, and things were just evolving so quickly in terms of media. And I think it's good to go back and appreciate where film has, started and where it's bringing us today, because people and directors take their cues from history. Yeah. Right? Music artists do the same thing. So it's good to see where some of these tropes come from that maybe we've been seeing in more modern features too. Yeah,
I mean, because Kevin Smith is very influential from that era. Like I said, him and Tarantino kind of like pushed, I don't think they probably started it, but they kind of really made popular this form of movie dialogue where, you think about like movies before that, it's natural, but most dialogue is there to push some part of the movie forward, whatever. But this brought Smith and Tarantino brought this idea that like you could have these scenes where it was all just dialogue about bullshit. Now it's still pushing something forward. It's pushing their characterization forward.
Right.
So you sort of know where these characters come from. But when you think about it, like the dialogue, some of this dialogue has literally nothing to do with the plot. And that was something that I think now, I think you don't see it as heavy anymore. People kind of toned it back, but now they've incorporated like all of it, and it kind of started with Tarantino and also speaking of Tarantino, you watched Kill Bill 1 and 2 for the first. Right. But had you seen Pulp Fiction before, right?
Pulp Fiction, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Reservoir Dogs or no?
No.
Okay. Okay. Pulp Fiction. So as far as this style of dialogue goes, who do you prefer more, Tarantino or Kevin Smith, from what you've seen?
Oh, that's a tough one. Maybe Kevin Smith.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, like some of the dialogue that takes place in Clerks, it doesn't move anything forward other than the characters. Yeah. But also, like, what's the plot of Clerks, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's just a slice of their day.
This isn't some grand, cinematic Lord of the Rings where there's this huge villain and a climax at the end. Like, it's just a day in the life. And I think it's refreshing to see a film like that, because I think so many times we have these really long build-ups in a movie, and maybe they stretch it out over 3 or 4 films, and you got to go back to finish it. Sometimes it's nice just to sit down and watch some bullshit,
Yeah, exactly. And that's sort of where the fun comes from. For me, it's Mallrats is very similar. It's like a slice of just their one day, and it's a little bit more Ferris Bueller-y, I'd say, but like it's still the same, like what you're saying. It's like just I think it's from the moment they wake up in the morning till at night. And not like you, I like that too. I like that bookend of Clerks. It starts literally with him opening the store or not being able to open the store,
Right.
and it ends with the day being done. And I like that kind of same way it's like sort of bookended. And because it's also too, I like movies and stories that like take place in one place, like maybe just in one bar or whatever. And this, obviously like they branch out a little bit,
Just a
but
little.
for the most part,
They go
it's
to the
still-
rooftop. I
They
mean,
go to the rooftop. They
they
go
put
to
their
the funeral.
They do go to the funeral.
The funeral.
Is that the only time they actually leave the store? I
Well,
think?
Randall technically goes to the other video store,
That's
but you
right.
don't. Well, you see him walk in, and
Well,
then
that
he,
video store is like a totally different experience
yeah,
than he
and
works.
he falls
in.
down to
It's
his
beautiful.
knees.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that thing. Yeah. Now I will say, there is a Clerks 2 and a Clerks 3.
I saw that, and I have a history of watching the wrong movie,
So-
so I had to make sure I was watching the black and white.
I told you it was
1994
black.
Clerks.
So funny story. I wanted Luna to watch Halloween, the original. She accidentally watched Rob Zombie's Halloween, but I'm texting her. I'm like, "Oh, what'd you think of Halloween?" She's like, "It was okay." And I don't even. It wasn't even like right away did we got to the
No.
the problem.
I think you figured it out when I told you that it was like the extended version, and like there is no extended version.
You were like, I think I watched the extended version. I was like, there is no. I was like, oh no. Did you watch Rob Zombies? You're like, yeah. I'm like, oh no.
Well, I was trying to save money. I walked to the used bookstore. They have a huge selection of like used DVDs for like $4. I was like, oh, I'll just buy it, and then I fucked it up, and then I fucked it up again with
the Stepfather.
Stepfather.
Told you.
I didn't even finish that movie. It was so
Because you watched
terrible.
the remake. You watched
Oh
the
my God.
remake.
Now I did watch the original Halloween.
Yes, you
So
did.
I have redemption for that. I have not watched the new Stepfather, or
The original
Stepfather.
there's a bazillion other movies that I want you to see, before I love Stepfather, but I think we need to get some time between the remake and and the
I
original.
need to flush my brain
Yeah.
of the memory.
Yeah, I think so. There is also, so me personally, I fucking hated Clerks 2. You might not love it either because Randall goes on a big tirade about how there's only one return, and that's of the Jedi and not of the King. And I know you're a big Lord of the Rings fan.
I love my Lord of the Rings.
Yes, so Randall goes on a giant tirade about basically how there's only one trilogy, and that's the Star Wars trilogy. But me personally, and if you can find it, I don't know where you can. There was like there's a Clerks animated cartoon.
Oh, okay.
They only did like 8 or 10 episodes. Like it was only like a half a season and it got canceled. It was fucking great. I loved that. And Dante does the voice, Randall does, like everyone does their own voices, and it's so good. Like if I could recommend something, it would be that. But to keep going with Kevin Smith, I would definitely recommend Mallrats, and then I like Dogma, which is his basically take on Catholicism, and everything. So he's some of his later stuff like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back and stuff like that, I started phasing out. I wouldn't say I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan like now. I don't watch a lot of his newer stuff, but for the time between Clerks and Mallrats, and then to a lesser extent Dogma, Kevin Smith was my entire fucking early 20s, late teens. He was fucking him and Tarantino were just everything to me.
Well, maybe we'll have to add a Mallrats. Well, you already did Mallrats, right?
I would totally do a mini
a
episode,
mini update?
mini
Yeah.
update with you and Mallrats. Anything else we forgot to talk about on Clerks that you liked? Anything jump into your head?
One of the things I thought was really funny, it's not totally PC, but I felt like it was tastefully done, is when Randall rents the porno for him.
Chicks with Dicks, if I'm mind to say.
I fucking love that. Like, he just wants to watch it with his bro.
Yeah.
Like, no shame. I was like, you go, man. Like,
that phrase is burned into my brain when the guy that does die on the toilet, when he asked for like a nudie mag.
Oh, yeah.
And he's
Well,
like,
it's like the toilet
they got the bigger titties in
Yeah.
there. That stuck in. So many phrases are just locked into my fucking brain.
I'm burned. I mean...
I'm glad you enjoyed it. This was super fun. Whenever you watch Mallrats, if you have a little mic on your computer, we can do another one of these over, Zoom or whatever.
Yeah,
when you're back up in Seattle. But this was a lot of fun. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks for taking the time, and I appreciate you recommending the movie to me. I think it's a must-watch if you haven't seen it. Even if you're 30, 40, and you've never sat down to watch Clerks, take the time. It's worth it.
It's great to hear. I mean, like, you know, like that's all I wanted to know. It's like, and I truly had no clue how it was going to land for you. Like, because again, like I said, it's not the most PC movie out there.
It's not. So just take that into, you know, account. I think it's kind of, I mean, like Dave Chappelle's gotten canceled lately, but some of his earlier stuff was really tastefully done. So just take it for what it is. And just let yourself kick back and watch the movie. Maybe take an edible beforehand.
Yeah, highly recommend that. Well, Luna, thank you so much. Do you want to plug anything? Is there anything you want to plug?
No, I don't think so. I don't have anything going on in my life. So.
Okay, all right. Well, then all I'll say is, as always,
we'll catch you on the dark side.
Be sure to subscribe to Podcasting After Dark and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. Support Podcasting After Dark on Patreon. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Podcasting After Dark. And visit us next time for another installment of Podcasting After Dark with Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer.